question this morning. Who can explain why our baptismal font has 8 sides? It's okay. This is an answer I didn't learn until I was in seminary at a quite advanced age. But have you ever noticed that not only does our font have 8 sides, but most of the fonts that you'll see in Christian churches have 8 sides, and have had, not since the very beginning, because in the beginning they were more likely to baptize by immersion, so it would have been a big thing. But the earliest reference that I found in a very quick Google search yesterday was to St. Ambrose, so I think it was in the middle of the 4th century, talking about the 8-sided font. And here's the reason. The 8 sides represents the 8th day of creation. So Jews to this day observe the Sabbath on Saturday, the 7th day. God created the world over a period of 6 days in Genesis, and on the 7th day God rested. And the Sabbath was a sign, really, of the covenant between God and God's people. The 8th day, Sunday, is the Lord's Day. It's our celebration of the resurrection. It's the first day of the new creation, this new life that Christ has brought us through his death and resurrection. And from earliest times, Christians have gathered together on Sunday to celebrate that. There's a little fragment, I guess it's not, I guess they found more than a fragment, but seminarians have to learn one fragment, of a writing by a man named Justin Martyr. He moved around like a number of those people like Paul. He ended up in Rome. We believe this was written around the year 150 AD. And he describes the Sunday celebration. He said, on the day that's called Sunday, the Christians from city and country gather together. They hear readings from the memoirs of the apostles, pretty much for as long as they can take it. So I hope you'll have some time this morning. And then after the readings, the president speaks about them and explains them. And then we have bread and wine, which we share. And at the end we leave, and some bread and wine is sent out to those who could not be with us. The deacons take it out. That sounds so remarkably like what we do here. So another question for us this morning is, why? Why do we do what we do here? Not just because it's done, but why do we do each of the things we do? We'll come back to that one, but first I want to talk a little bit about the parable of the talents, another thought-provoking parable, getting toward the end of the account of the life of Jesus in the memoir of Matthew. You know this story. The master's about to go away for a long time, as it turns out. And he entrusts one of his servants with 5 talents. Now, our understanding of this story is complicated, I think, by the fact that we have traditionally translated the word talenton, which is a Greek word, as talent, which has a meaning in English, which is different, I think, from the Greek meaning. So, talent, singing, dancing. A talenton was an immense amount of money, a huge amount of money, 15 years' wages at manual labor rates. So the one who got 5 talents, well, that was an unspeakable fortune, but even the one who got 1, that was pretty good. The one with the 5 doubled them. The one with the 2 doubled them. The one with the 1 buried it in the ground. What's the problem here? The problem, he doesn't lose it. The problem is that he acts out of fear. He acts on his understanding of God. What we're seeing in this is a description of a God whose generosity is abundant and who empowers us to act. But this one, he has the wrong impression. He has a God he's afraid of. Well, a master he's afraid of, but the parallel. A God he's afraid of. It suggests fear, it suggests paralysis, it suggests inability to act. And he buries it in the ground, the master comes back, and he is furious. Whereas he says to the first two, enter into the joy of your master, the last one is condemned. Every week as I prepare to preach, I have a bunch of little things I go through. And one of them is early in the week, I listen to a podcast. There's a website called workingpreacher.org. It is sponsored by Luther Seminary, which I think is in St. Paul. It's a Lutheran seminary. And they have a number of resources for preparing to preach, which are really very useful and helpful. And one of them is this podcast. So they have 3 professors who sit and chat about the readings, the history, what they mean, some ideas about how to preach them. And I usually listen to that in the car, either on Monday if I'm going somewhere, or certainly on Tuesday when I'm driving to church. And they're having this conversation, and when I get really excited, I join in the conversation. So last week, I'm driving, and they're saying, you know, we get the wrong idea. We're mistaken about what that talent represents. It certainly isn't singing and dancing. It isn't even really money, per se. This isn't a parable, they were saying, about how we as individuals are supposed to use the resources that God gave us. They said, the resource is the church. And I said, yes, that's what I've been telling them. I've been telling them that for a couple of weeks now. They didn't answer. But, as I've been preaching through stewardship season, that's what I've been saying, that the church is a resource. It doesn't belong to us, either this parish or the universal church, but especially this parish. It belongs to the master. And we've been entrusted with it for a period of time until the master comes back and asks for an accounting. And what we're supposed to do is to take risks, to live abundantly, to be about the work of the master, to be making disciples, to be, as that line that comes right after this part, this little parable is, the final judgment. I was hungry and you gave me to eat. I was alone and you comforted me. All of those things. That's the mission. And so when the master comes back, what we're going to be asked is, how were you as disciples? How did you live your lives of discipleship? What did you do to build up the church? We can't just huddle here in fear that we might lose it in the time that we have it. We need to take risks and live that life. So now I come back to the question, why do we do what we do here on Sunday morning? And there are a lot of answers that are contributing to the truth, like, yeah, we come to be closer to God, we come to be holy, we come to be in community. But the really, really basic reason of why we're here is to get to know God better, to get to know Jesus better, to become better disciples. This is the school where we learn what discipleship is all about, what it's like to live this life. And everything we do here on Sunday morning should be contributing to that. And I mean everything. I mean the music, I mean the way the churches are arranged, all of the parts come together toward that goal. To give us a chance to rehearse kingdom living, to learn what it is to be disciples. So I know that the very faithful and patient Altar Guild has sometimes wondered, when am I going to say all of my wishes clearly and simply for how I want the church on Sunday morning? When you smile, that's true. And instead, I haven't given really clear, and I've just kind of tinkered a little. And I could have just come here and brought you a lot of things that I did at other churches and said, I like this, so we're going to do this now. The church gives me the authority to do that, but to me, that would have been so fundamentally disrespectful of what was already happening here before I came. There already was a community here. There was a community that was working every Sunday and doing it well, and you were being formed as disciples. The way that you provide pastoral care to each other is very moving to me and very inspiring. The responsibility you take for addressing the needs of the world is also moving and inspiring. Your personal spiritual lives, I mean, we're all developing, but there's a deep spirituality here, a deep closeness to God. And it would have been so disrespectful of me to come in and just say, here's what I like, we're doing it different now. But as you've noticed, I have done some little changes as I move toward getting to know you and letting you get to know me. So when I bring the book into the aisle, and I actually don't know what was done before me, but the reason for doing that is to bring the word as close to the people as possible, to be in the assembly. When I stand here and preach, again, it's because I want to be close to you. I want to have eye contact with you. I like it to be a conversation. I know I don't ask too many questions, but you can see why. I like it to feel like there's some back and forth. To tell you the truth, when I stand there are parts of this church that I can't really see, and that kind of feels strange to me. I've been experimenting with laying the book flat on the altar, on the table. It's a little bit challenging for me with my trifocals, but the reason for that is because when you've got the big gold book stand, I know it's a tradition, but what's the most important thing on the altar? The book stand? I mean, I'm trying to get the bread, to point to the fact that it's the bread and wine that really are the important thing. All of this is by way of saying that you may see some more changes in Advent as we move into that season. I can't say what they are exactly yet. I will. Something. I can't say exactly what they are yet because I really am still praying about that and discerning that in my own mind. But they will be things that I hope will enhance our experience of the season of Advent. That waiting, that longing, that sense that something big is coming. There may be some changes in that direction, and it may be that we'll go back to how we were before at the end of Advent. I always welcome your comments to me. I'm not saying that we're going to have a vote on how to arrange the church, but I am interested in hearing, like, how is this affecting your experience? And we'll go from there. So I want to conclude with a prayer that I took from a book which is actually called 100 Prayers for Making Faith Connection. This is sort of a sending prayer. And I won't read it now because I think it sums up a lot of what I've been saying about this being a school for discipleship. What do we learn here? How does it form us? And what do we take away from it? So listen again, because you may hear some of these words again at the end when we are being sent. But the prayer goes like this. Lord, send me forth this day to bring your good news to those poor who hunger for a word of hope, to my neighbor starving for a friendly gesture, to my coworker who longs to be accepted. Send me out with eyes open wide to see the loveliness of your creation, the sight of your face in the face of a stranger, the insight to know the right words and gestures to offer a hurting friend. Send me in peace and joy that I might be an instrument of your liberating love, your joyful presence, and your redeeming compassion. Grant that I may bring your presence to a waiting world. Amen.